If you haven't downloaded the 2020 Comms Report, Measuring Up to the Moment by Cision, highly recommend you do that right now. The link is somewhere up here, down here in the comments section. But I highly recommend it for any marketer or communicator, whether you work in marketing, PR, social media, digital, direct marketing, channel marketing. It has some very, very enlightening content and insights that you can use today. So welcome back to this week's video. I do want to talk about this report because I do think it's important. And there are some interesting insights that I feel need to be addressed, specifically as it relates to data, research, measurement, and influencer marketing and content. So what I'm going to do over the next 10 minutes or so is just talk about 4 or 5 different data points and provide my perspective and point of view on why they are what they are and ways that we can improve it. And the first data point I want to talk about is around measurement. And there was a question in there on whether or not the industry effectively measures the impact of PR. And 52% agreed that it does, 29% said not so much, and less than 5% say not at all. And I was quite shocked, to be honest. I mean, it's 2020, and there is software out in the market today that allows us to do that, right? We can measure the impact of our PR and media relations efforts in the market. And the fact that they answered no just kind of scares me and reinforces this idea that we still have a really long way to go. And I think part of that is not just within the industry. I think a lot of that has to do with education. Many of you don't know this, but I teach at San Jose State, and I teach a class on strategic social media. Now, it's a part of a larger mass media communications program, and there are a lot of PR, classes in there. And there's not one class on technology, right? And the different ways to not just monitor the media, but measure the effectiveness of a placement in Forbes versus Fortune. And so I do think that there's a long way to go. And the fact that it's 2020, I'm hoping that 2021, we start to think about proving ROI, especially now with budgets being tight and the CMO asking us to prove the value of media relations. I do feel like, marketers, PR, and comms pros really need to start thinking about demonstrating ROI and value. And sticking with measurement, 60% of those respondents allocate less than 10% of their total PR budget to measurement. Again, to me, that's a huge disconnect. And, from my standpoint, maybe not 50%, but certainly not 10% should be allocated towards software. And it's not just software. It's because software only does 30% of providing the data. There has to be a human layer of analysis, whether it's an agency or it's somebody internally who can look through the data and provide actionable insights. That is important. That is how you get better at media relations, and that is how you tell better stories and get the placements that you want to get by looking at data and acting on it. And so 10%, not a lot. I mean, if you have a $50,000 budget for the year and 5% goes to media monitoring, I don't get it. What are they using? Are they just Google alerts? I don't know. So that's a huge disconnect. And again, we still have a long way to go in measurement and analytics as it relates to measuring PR. There's another data point that I thought was interesting around influencer marketing. And when asked if influencer marketing was part of the strategy, or rather paying influencers, so that's a distinction. It's not just influencer engagement, but actually paying influencers. 41% said no, 21% said not very much, and so on. And I think, from my standpoint, there's really no right answer, because if you look at different verticals like consumer or healthcare or business and technology, people have different views of influencer marketing. Now, working in tech, I've seen huge increases in investment for influencer marketing, which does include paying influencers to be content creators or attending events, moderating panels and things like that. So I think it really depends on the vertical in order to make an accurate assessment. And even then, also the size of the company, the sophistication of the products and services that you have. In some cases, influencer marketing just won't work. And so I just thought it was interesting that there is such a large number of marketers and comms pros who don't necessarily pay influencers. Now, that's not really a bad thing though, because I've talked a lot about this in the past around using influencer marketing without having to pay them through real-time listening, real-time engagement, and real-time creative asset development. And we've done a lot of that in business and tech environments, and it works. Getting on the radar of influencers through highly targeted creative content by listening to what these influencers are saying is a strategy that works, and it drives value. And so again, interesting data point, not very actionable either way, but I thought it was important to talk about. And there was a question in the report that asked, the single most important PR task among 8 that they provided were the following. Now, I think that some of this is backwards, and maybe it was how the questions were asked, but 41%, which was the top of the list, was content creation. And it was good to see that. I think, 5 years ago, it would have been media outreach or media relationships. But content creation, storytelling, I think, is that core and critical element of any PR program. And that content has a shelf life of forever. And 27% say media outreach. I'm not going to read through all of them. I'm just going to highlight a couple that I thought were, unfortunately low. 6% analytics and reporting. Now they also add social listening and engagement, and then media monitoring. And I kind of cluster some of those together because there's the way that I look at this is there's a difference between analytics and measurement, right? Measurement is data that is after the fact, right? It measures the effectiveness or not of a program. And there are insights that you can pull to then use to inform how you outreach to the media at a later time. But analytics is different. Analytics and insights is, going really deep and exploring the psychology of journalists, the narratives of different media publications, and using that intelligence to identify white space, to identify new narratives that are better than your competitors, that are different from your competitors, and ones that will help you achieve the goals that you want to achieve. And that's really not measurement, right? That's looking at data across the media, across social, and used to inform, a program. That program could be an editorial approach. It could be a campaign. It could be an executive, comm strategy. It could be just about anything. But then when you launch it and get into market and it's live and it's maybe it's a 2-month program or it's an annual program, measurement is then used to determine whether or not it was the right thing to do. And so I just think that part of this report, and again, I didn't see the report. I wasn't part of the survey, so I don't know how the questions were positioned or asked. But, there's 3 different data points here: social listening and engagement, analytics and reporting, and media monitoring. Again, I would classify social listening, analytics, and insights into, before the fact, right? Put that in one bucket. And then media monitoring, reporting, and measurement, I would put that in a different type of question. I think that will give a more accurate view of, where, different marketers and communications pros are value, how they value the different tasks as it relates to PR. And again, this was a really great report, measuring up to the moment, a 2020 comms report by Cision. Highly recommend you read it. It's very visual, very easy to read, the way that they've kind of laid out everything in this document. I do think that you have to provide your email address, so be prepared to do that, but it's worth it, right? It's something that you can use to think about. If you're an agency, you can use it for pitching. If you are within the media, an organization, you can use it to start thinking about budget allocation or maybe shifting some of your priorities. And I just want to thank you again for tuning in. And it's been a while since I did a video, and I just want to thank you for watching, and thank you for subscribing to my feed. And if I don't see you before the holidays or we don't talk, I hope you have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And until I see you next time, hope you're well, and I'll talk to you soon.